Welcome to Talent Takeover
Unfiltered.
When it comes to working hard and keeping it real, we know our shit. Self-care, happiness, inner peace, and time. I'm Brianna Rooney, and this is Taylor Bradley.
Hey, y'all.
And we have thrived in chaos and turned it into an art form. So Taylor, what are we doing here today?
We're here to give you a raw, under-the-hood view of all things recruiting and finally give credit where credit is due to a long underrated industry that's full of quote-unquote experts.
All right. Well, then let's take this show to the road. Hey. Welcome to Talent Takeover Unfiltered. We're coming in with, of course, another controversial subject because why wouldn't we? Taylor, good morning.
I thought this was going to be a filtered day.
But, we have thought about that. Well, for a millisecond. Because, okay. Let's really put it out there. So now we have SHRM credit with, diversity.
Yeah.
Massive and exciting. And we realize, Just the producer goes, oh, you can actually get SHRM credits for your podcast. And we're like, do we have to mind our P's and Q's for that?
Is SHRM fond of the word fuck? How are they going to feel about that?
No, but no, yeah.
Don't worry. We're going to be authentic. I promise. We're going to stay true to who we are and to this podcast and be authentic. And I do think there's some that could translate over nicely for sure. But yeah, as long as they have that little beep censor button that they can use, just
blur us live. Well, okay, so I'll get to it. Yeah. So this is about, the subject is lazy girl jobs. It's a new trend. Is this something that you saw on TikTok, or how did this come about?
On TikTok, full disclosure, I'm not on TikTok, but I read a lot.
Well, I think Forbes got it from TikTok, right?
Yeah, it started on TikTok, and then news outlets picked it up. So yes, to give you that context, and I have a really good broke to boss tip, guys. So I want you guys to make sure. I know we say I always feel like they're good, but make sure to listen to the end. And this was a really interesting topic for me because I was like, what the fuck is a lazy girl job? And the fact that it's positive, I was like, what? Mind blown, because I just have such a negative, the word lazy just has such a negative connotation to it for me. So I was like, what is this? When I saw it on the news, and the fact that it was even on the news, it was kind of crazy. When I say saw it, I read it because they're like, who the fuck watches the news these days? But I read it because that's my preferred learning method. I like to read a lot. I was reading the news and I was like, what is this lazy girl thing? Let me learn about this. And so what it is it's described as not your typical 9-to-5 job. These lazy girl jobs are hyper flexible, work from home jobs that you can accrue a decent income. These jobs have little to no oversight, and it allows for a slower pace of life and includes a highly manageable schedule. That has to be, that is the focus of it, is that you have autonomy, flexibility, you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. And so,
but not so bad.
It doesn't sound so bad. But us, we're lazy. It just isn't a word that you associate positivity to.
I almost lost my noodle when I was like, what is lazy girl's job?
Yeah.
No, why is it? And I'm like, why isn't it called lazy boy? I was very quickly
yeah. And so it's working to what they're going for all of our listeners, if you haven't heard of this, because by the end of it, I was like, okay, I understand a little better. Instantly when I read the headline, I was like, I don't like it. And then when I started to read about it, I was like, I still see what they're going for. I probably wouldn't have called it that, but it's to redefine what it means to be lazy in our modern culture. So in, our culture, typically or historically, lazy means unwilling to work. But a lazy girl job is about being unwilling to only work or expend an exhaustive amount of energy into work, which I think is interesting. Exactly. It's okay, so it's what we always talk about. It's what you want to strive for. It's work-life balance. But what it says is it's the perfect antidote to the killing yourself to live culture that baby boomers, Gen Xers, and millennials have often had to live by. So this younger generation has come in and they're there's been decades of these inflexible 9-to-5 jobs. And, it's is it really paying off? And I thought this was interesting. You're going to love this. So according to 2020 census data, and this article was from 2023, but they referenced 2020 census data, nearly half of baby boomers have no savings or retirement.
Oh my God. I just got the most negative money chills in the world. Oh my God. That's awful.
Yeah. It's deficit money chills. Like your money, it's a negative. And I'm like, okay, so as you're listening, listeners, you're probably picking up that although it sounds negative at first, what they're trying to get at is like, if you're going to kill yourself to work, at least have some savings and some money in the bank by the end of it, because the baby boomer generation literally, live to work and they've got nothing to show for it. And so I kind of am interpreting this as I was reading it like, okay, work smarter, not harder,
Yeah.
like that's what the theme is. And, it says, given life's other demands, these lazy girl jobs are about prioritizing your mental health, your physical health. And it's about just not just your life being centered around your work. It's about it just being one component of your life is your work, but also making a good amount of income that you're not still living paycheck to paycheck and you're not having like no savings,
Yeah. So, okay, I'm gonna address a couple of things here. So first of all, like, anyone that's not in the States thinks we're like, we're over here killing ourselves, right? Like we don't stop, we don't enjoy life, we don't do all those things. So I feel like now we're just kind of peeking our heads up and being like, oh yeah, I should enjoy life. Oh, I should actually take some time off when I have a baby. Oh, I should do this. Oh, I should do that. So it's just us realizing and knowing better and learning from people, that again have been killing themselves over things with no savings. That's insane. So I think that, and then, but the issue is lazy is so negative. So like, if someone called me lazy, I would be offended. Like I would be like, hell no. Even my son was like, oh my God, I know we're not lazy, but could we have a lazy day? And like, it almost made me feel bad. I'm like, oh wow, that means we don't chill.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, we definitely have to think of different meanings for this. But I did see an article, and this was quite a while ago, and I should actually find it just to show you. But it was basically like, we've got it all wrong. Lazy people are the most brilliant. They're the most efficient people. And it was like, what is this? But it was basically shows you that it was this trend that people that are considered lazy do the most minimal amount of work to get a certain result. And so I had to like take a step back, and actually it's a pretty good article, but this is kind of like what that is it's like, look, let me take a step back to step forward. Like I don't need to keep doing this. Like it's like you're banging your head up against the wall doing the same thing. And that's like what the definition of insanity, expecting a different result, so it's really interesting. And then I'll hit you with one more. I want to hear about this is, I just saw a report saying that actually we're down to working 37-hour work weeks, and which is its own separate subject, because I've toyed with shorter and shorter work weeks, because there's lots of science that shows that we can only handle 4 hours a day, which is really crazy when you think about that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you've heard about the conversation, which you're probably be like, why you're bringing this up, but it's same but different. There was the conversations happening about making school weeks 4 days a week.
Oh, hell yeah, please. Yeah.
Well, but for me, I'm like, unless I have Fridays off too.
Correct.
Everybody's got to do it. You know what I mean? Like 100%. We've all got to do it, and I'm totally supportive of it, and I'm here for it all day long if everybody's going to do it. But if I'm still going to be working, other kids are still in schools because then it becomes like summer, or like Chris. I have to have them in summer camps and things like that, because I like to be heads down, focused on work, which is probably exactly what lazy girl jobs like doesn't stand for. It's like, I like when I'm working, I like to be in work mode, and I get very particular about that. And Jess, our producer, she's known me forever, can speak to this, that it's like, I don't want the interruptions with it. It makes me crazy if I have to listen to kids, like, because they're here. So I'm going to listen for them, make sure they're good. They still are like some support.
Still their mom first.
Exactly. So mom first. And so when they're gone and doing something else, I'm like, okay, I can be focused on work. But I think this is like, I as I read through it, I was like, maybe they're trying to take their power back by using the word lazy, because it's like, okay, if you want to call us lazy, this new like what Gen Z, I guess, is who started this. But if you want to call us lazy, fuck it. We're gonna use it again. Like, we're gonna take our power back, and we're gonna say, okay, we'll be lazy, and this is the definition of a lazy girl job. And while you guys are over there killing yourselves and still have no savings, we're going to be enjoying our lives and living our lives to the fullest, and overall have happier lives than you, because we're not, working ourselves to death.
You know what? It's almost the same thing, like, from Pitch Perfect, Fat Amy. She's like, I just call myself Fat Amy because I know you bitches are going to behind my back. So I'm just going to put it out there. Yeah, that is so interesting. I like that.
Yeah, and again, and I was like, I knew once we started talking about it, because as our listeners know, we don't like plan these episodes beforehand. And so I'll come up with some stuff and Brianna won't know sometimes what we're going to talk about. And so I was like, God, she's going to hate lazy girl jobs.
And I did. I was like,
what the fuck is this? But then as I started talking about it, and here was a really interesting spin on it in this article. And it really made me start thinking, because it says, like, basically it's saying Gen Z deserves credit for at least saying that these are quote unquote lazy girl jobs, and saying that they're prioritizing their physical and mental health. And they deserve the credit for speaking up because, and here's the chill one. I just got chills, because lazy work has been happening for eons. And it's like, we're looking at you, absentee bosses, money managers, people who do what we really don't know. The only difference is those suits don't talk about how little they actually work. So it's like, this isn't new. Y'all,
right. Oh my
yeah.
God. You did
So
the chills.
It gave me the chills saying it. So it's like, this isn't new. We're taking our power back and we're speaking about it, which I was like, by the end of it, I was like, this is powerful to me. I still don't think I would call it a lazy girl job, but that's because lazy it's conditioned in me. It has a negative connotation. And that's just like, but we're not Gen Zers. We didn't grow up, in that, where lazy is like, means something different. It means something very negative in my world and your world. And so, I think chill girl jobs, way better.
Yeah.
Way better vibe.
Yeah. I do like that. Well, I mean, chill and vibe. I mean, chill is a vibe,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, so remember how we did the episode? I cannot remember what it was called, but we talked about multitasking, and it's actually a negative thing. Like, we should keep multitasking. We have to be present. Well, okay. My daughter the other day, like, she really wanted to watch a little cartoon before she went to bed. Well, I'm like, and she's normally quite snail. She's like, moves at her own pace,
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if you want to do that, then I need you to get dressed really quickly. We got to do your hair, put in braids, And I was like, kind of spitting some stuff out that she had to do before. And she's like, I can see her really frantic. She goes, how am I supposed to multitask when I can't single task?
That's hilarious.
I started laughing, and I was like, you know what? This is such an amazing lesson for work, because it's like, you have to have fundamentals before you can do anything. So that's like with any job, right? We talk about how we're trying to train and all that stuff via University.
Yeah.
You have to train. You have to know that even before you start your own agency. You have to make sure, again, you have fundamentals, and you have to make sure you're not spreading yourself too thin with what you got: biz dev, candidate outreach, marketing, content, video. It's like, you have all this shit to do. And I always pride myself in like, oh, I am such a great multitasker, like pushing the envelope, but it's like, eventually you're so thin that you're not doing anything well.
Yeah.
So I think that also this kind of goes back to that. It's like, actually, maybe we just double task. How about that?
Yeah.
We don't need to triple and so forth.
That feels so much better, because whatever. I mean, I know my day and your day are kind of the same, and it's like, we're focused on so many different things throughout the day. It's like, it's like 10 different people's jobs, technically. Like, what could normally fall into one lane, you know what I mean? Like, this is biz dev and / sales, and this is accounting and finance, and this is HR, and there's like so many different things, and that's startup life, and that's what you sign up for, and that's what like also gets you for certain people that want to be in a startup, right? Like, you have to have that kind of like, I like to do this and this and this, and Jess, our producer, and I were talking about it before we actually started recording today. We were talking about that. Like, that's what makes our jobs. That's why we like them, is because it's never a dull moment. You're doing a million different things. And I think that's like, I think lazy girl jobs, it can be part of that too, because they're not saying you spend all your time just on the one thing. You could be double tasking, but it's about like, okay, when it's time for me to sign off, I'm signed off, like, I'm not going to do anything after hours. I'm not going to go above and beyond. And, we've actually seen some people post about that recently, about, kind of going above and beyond within their organizations, and like where that got them, that
it didn't. Yeah. It still got them in the same place, which is let go. Yeah,
exactly. Like, it didn't solidify your spot. It didn't, promote you or advance you. You know what I mean? Like, taking on more. And this is how I interpreted that. This theme that we're seeing lately is like, and Gen Z's talking about it a lot, like, taking on more doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get ahead. And I'm like, well, shit. And it just is like eye-opening for me, because that's not been my personal experience, and we've talked about that in past episodes, where that is how I got promotions and worked my way and climbed my way up in the corporate ladder was taking on those additional tasks, doing things at traveling after hours, things that people didn't want to do. So to me, that means something different because it was my truth and my path, and it did work. But I do understand how today in work cultures and environments, that may not necessarily be the case. You know what I mean? And so I think people need to figure out what works for them as far as like, if you want to just have, you could pay your bills and you want to live, paycheck to paycheck, and you want to balance health and mental health and all those things, that's absolutely a choice. And I do think that there's something to be said about like, you're probably not going to be as stressed out as our generation is. That is probably true. If they adopt this mentality, they're probably not going to stress as much as we do doing a million things. It's like, if I know I'm just doing a job and that's all it is to me is a job and all these other things are more important than this job, they probably will have less stress than we do.
Okay. I mean, this could be in lots of different episodes, I feel like, but then what's work ethic? Like how do we define work ethic now? Because obviously it has been defined something differently. I mean, think about like, people were only farming when they had to do like, can you imagine like that day without electricity? Like, I mean, like I'm going way back, but it's like, we're so much for it here. But I'm just saying in like 100 years, for example, great grandkids, like that's going to look very, very, very different. Like what does work ethic look like today? And on the separate side, again, probably a different episode, how do companies handle that? Yeah, they still have to, it still comes down to what's the ROI, what's the revenue, how do we push the needle? Because things keep costing more, salaries keep going up, but yet there's not a lot of dedication. There's not a lot of work ethic. So I don't know, devil's advocate over here.
No, that really, I mean, it's a great point, but I think if we reframe it to what we talked about originally at the start of this podcast episode is like working smarter, not harder. Yeah. I mean, I don't
get behind. Yeah.
Because we've talked about it in our one-on-ones and stuff. So getting really, kind of personal for our listeners is that we talk about like, we need to work harder or we need to work smarter, not harder. And there's areas in our workflows where we could be more efficient, where we do double the work and triple the work, where it's like, we could be more efficient. So I think there's something to be said for that. Cause I don't think that being more efficient means that you're lacking work ethic. I think it's working smarter, not harder, and I think when we duplicate efforts or do the thing, things that we've talked about, it's like, it definitely isn't, it's not being lazy. It's just, we're not being efficient, And so I think being efficient is kind of how like, if you've got 20 hours where somebody's killing themselves and busting their ass for 20 hours, studies do show like they're probably getting more done than somebody who's working 40 hours. Like you started to say the 37-hour work weeks, like how many hours are people actually working because they're starting to feel burnout versus if you could have that person for half the amount of time, but they were just efficient as fuck and busting their ass, you probably could end up with the same like equal balance of work.
Okay. I have a story with this. So I hired someone like right out of college. He was still like finishing up, so he couldn't give me his full time. No problem. So his full time was his part time was so badass. I couldn't wait for him to come on full time.
Yeah.
Guess what happened? He came on full time and his productivity dipped. It's like, wait a minute. You did more half the time than you now do full time. So I had to have very serious conversations in it. It sucks. I'm like, how did this even happen? It's because it's not sustainable. I 1,000% actually believe in maybe even like for sure a 32 work week. Hands down, easy 32 work week for sure. But I think I'm going to talk to you about this. I did take Fridays off. Like everybody took Fridays off. It happened when I had Diego because I had to take Fridays off. So I'm like, what? Let's do. And I found that I was crazy efficient. I was like, oh my God, I worked one last day and then I got more done. So I implemented that at work. And I was like, great, everybody has Friday off. The problem there, and this comes back to discipline, is then people started treating Thursday like Friday. Like how you check out?
Yeah.
So I was like, Jesus Christ, okay, fine. So then I did a half day Friday only to ensure I got people full time Monday through Thursday. I didn't give a shit if actually people worked on Friday. I just wanted to make sure they worked Monday through Thursday. So I had to trick them with a half day.
So
crazy.
That's like really, really interesting. There's like, that's its own little data set right there for like, can people actually work 4-day work weeks and like, and it'd be as effective as if they were working 5. it'd be as effective as if you were getting them like 6 hours for 5 days versus you're getting them, for 8 hours. I don't know what the math is, but I'm just throwing shit out there. But like that makes sense that people would start to treat Thursday like it's Friday. Like, okay, I'm going to start winding down, getting ready for my weekend. That's interesting. A company I worked for years back, they had a split schedule where they got every other Friday off, or we got every other Friday off. There was like an A and B. And so you didn't get every Friday off. You got every other Friday.
Oh, I
either
see.
A schedule or B schedule. And so there was always like some people working. And I even liked that. I even thought that was cool.
We talked about doing that for like Christmas holiday time.
Yeah. That was like all the time they did it though, and then there was a shutdown for Christmas for 2 weeks straight. It's like the whole company shut down. But the A and B thing, I'm like, that's really nice. Like planning vacations and planning around all of that. But I do get exactly what you're saying. I'm like, I'm sure people did probably treat Thursday like it was Friday when it was the A or B schedule, when it was their time to have that Friday off. I completely get that.
Well, let's talk about this offline because I'm all for this shit personally. So I would love to know, what you think for our crew.
Yeah, I just think, well, when I think about it, I'm like, everybody's got to do it, not even in just one organization, but like everybody's got to do it because we both know, if a client comes and hits you up on a Friday and we technically have a Friday, you're going to get on top of that. So it's like, I think there's something to be said about like, okay, priorities too. Like if it's a priority or urgent item, you need to get on it. But I also kind of feel like that with regards to anything. So going back to lazy girl jobs,
Please.
having these set hours, right? I think that that's all fine and well, but I'll give you an example of something that just happened to be this week that like infuriated me. So my doctor, we got new insurance, and so there's that where you have to now with switching insurances with like pharmacies and stuff, you have to get medical authorization forms, like prior authorization forms. So doctor's admin only works part-time, and she's great. She'll like text you, like we're on a text basis. That's how she'll confirm appointments. But she was like, she told me she couldn't get to my authorization form because she'd already maxed out her hours for the week.
Oh, okay. No. Okay. The clock in, clock out thing.
Yeah. And so when I was about lazy girl jobs before I actually read, I'm like, that's what that is. Like you've got your set hours. And if this was going to go beyond that, you're like, nope, not doing anything else. Hours. That's where I'm like, okay, the lazy girl job thing, which is what it means. That's what it's like. I work these set hours and not allowing people to, creep beyond the
boundaries.
Yeah. It's the boundaries. And it's like, okay, I don't really think always having hard boundaries like that. I think if something, and again, it could be a product of the way that I was raised and the way that I was raised, not only like personally, but raised in corporate culture. Like if something is time sensitive, it doesn't fucking matter what time it is. You get on it. Especially if it's going to bring in any kind of revenue, like you get on it,
Yeah, I think revenue and personal well-being are two really big things. But I can see on the other side that she's like, if she lets you do this, how many other people is she making the exception? But I think people confuse exception versus rule, and they just have too many exceptions. Like, there has to be a true exception. Like, it's not just this, everyone is an exception.
Yeah, exactly. And exactly like what you're saying, and playing devil's advocate with my own self, I was like, well, to be fair, I don't know how long those authorization forms take. Like that could be, multiple hours for her. I have no idea about that process. So I have no clue, what goes into that. So I was like, okay, you know what? Like it can wait a week. That's totally fine. I understand that she's also probably working part-time. And if she's not working part-time, I know she's working part-time here, but if she's not working part-time to balance work-life balance, like something else just to hang out with kids or whatever, she can have a whole nother job. You know what I mean?
True.
And 2 jobs, and it's like she's working 2 jobs part-time, and she really doesn't have the bandwidth. So I thought about all of those scenarios because it just happened, and then we're talking about lazy girl jobs, and I was like, that's kind of what that means, I feel like, is having really clear boundaries. And here leading into a good one, how this beautiful article I read about lazy girls jobs framed it up was basically saying, which you're going to love, is that women deserve to be outspoken about this movement. They've been undervalued and overworked for long enough, and they're tired. So that's why they're ready to do a lot less and encourage others to do the same. They're saying that the real female hustle of today isn't do it all and then some and do it all again tomorrow. It's more take back control of your life and your schedule. And, I thought that was empowering when I read that. I was like, okay, that's how it ended. I was like, I can get behind a lazy girl job now. I can.
Yeah. Well, you also, here's the perspective here is that we want to be seen. So it's like what women decided to do instead of raising our hands and asking for raises or I demand you respect me. We decided I'm just going to put my head down and work much harder than all you little fuckers. And that's how you're going to see me. So with you, how you said you got ahead, you did everything people didn't want to do. That was how you got seen.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you think about it on the other side, that's not how men get seen. Men get seen because they say something.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to lead totally a different episode. I know there's no way we would cover this, but I am pretty upset about, I have been trying to get really great guests on webinars, that we do with Covey, and I know Talent Perch will also host their own, right? And they're amazing. And naturally, I want to make sure we have equal representation. We have diversity of thought and all of those things, right? So I'm constantly hitting up as many people as I can in general. And naturally, as we know, I love about women. I love some about women. Women do not say yes. I have men going all day long. Yep, totally. Yep, love that subject. Yep, can't wait to talk about it all day long. Okay, to the point where I have this list of men, and I've got this little list of women, and it's like, oh my God. And I don't know stats on this. This is why I want to do an episode on it, because I'm pretty sure there's more women in talent than there are men. So yeah, the speaking up, it's like, yeah, when are we going to do this? So I actually like that this is coming into place and we are saying no, because I will tell you, I have trouble saying no. I always have. Sometimes just because I'm really curious about something, and we're doing this, I know what project I'm thinking about. Another project that I'm very curious on. Curiosity killed this cat. And
it killed it, it skinned it, and it drug it behind the car.
It's so interesting. Anyway, so I have said yes, way off. Yeah, more often than I should have. But even when I'm going back to what you were talking about with the doctor, I was thinking to myself, she had the time to text you that she couldn't do it. How long does this take? Couldn't she just do it? Just take 5 more minutes. That was my initial thought process. But God, all day long, if you sat next to me and you were watching my day, it's as many distractions as I have, it's freaking bonkers. And I have to constantly be like, Brianna, no. I actually say it out loud. I'm like, Brianna, no. Yeah. That's back to hand. Get back to what you were doing.
And then it goes back to the theme of are we working smarter and not harder? No. Do we practice what we preach sometimes? And you said you have trouble saying no, so it leads beautifully into my broke to boss tip, which is it's about saying no to the noise, which is all that other shit you're talking about that comes your way. So it's about saying no to the noise and instead put work into finding a stable job that you enjoy that doesn't strip away freedom and autonomy, and say no to the noise. And I'm like, okay, that I can get behind that. That was my broke to boss tip. And I don't even think you have to have a lazy girl job to say no to the noise. I think you just gave a great example of how you struggle to say no to the noise. And I'm sure you could give, and I think we should make this another episode, because I'm sure you could give our listeners some examples of what repercussions that's had in not saying no to the noise.
Okay.
And what repercussions, when you think, okay, I just want to do more, I'm curious, or what repercussions has that had for you personally or professionally? So, yeah, I think no is a full sentence, and I think women need to learn that.
Oh, why wasn't that your broke to boss tip? That would
maybe it is. No is a full fucking sentence, people. So, yeah.
Love it.
Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, we really, really value y'all's opinions, and I would actually love to hear what people think about lazy girl jobs. What is the perception you guys have? So when you watch this or listen to this, reach out to us, comment on the YouTube. I would love to know what's the vibe? What is the perception of lazy girl jobs? I'm really, really curious.
Yeah, and not based off of what it's called, because don't know. Actually, listen and read about it. So it's crazy. I'm into it. Give me some lazy girl jobs.
Yeah, and maybe we'll change it to chill girl jobs.
Chill girl.
Yeah.
I also think, side note, I don't love the word girl. I like lady, so it's chill lady job, but that doesn't sound as cool. So
chill lady job, just lazy.
It's not.
Those are snow cones.
I was thinking dentures, but yeah. All right. Thanks. I'll see you next Tuesday.
Thanks, y'all.